Endure and survive, and welcome everybody to another episode of the Lunch Table Podcast. In this episode, we will be reviewing episode 7 of The Last of Us, now streaming on HBO Max. This episode is called Left Behind, so help your boys out. Don't leave us behind. Drop a like, subscribe, check out our other reviews as well. We do plenty of them. And Dylan, man, what a beautiful episode. I love this episode so much, dude. I think it's a notable highlight. Like, gosh, let's just start with your thoughts.
It's a standout. I mean, hit after hit. That's what the series does. I've loved episodes 1 to 6, and now episode 7 is another banger. It's kind of breathing room between all this death and tragedy that we've kind of seen already. And I like watching the end credits when Neil Druckmann was explaining it, because he kind of pitched it as like, what if, like, how do kids like skip school in the apocalypse? I really like how he phrased that. So we see we've seen Joel's story, and now this is kind of Ellie's story, right? And I really appreciate that, and I liked seeing how they did it, because in the middle of her trying to patch Joel up and, you know, make sure he's alive, we have this cool little flashback, and we're also introduced to Riley, played by Storm Reed. But yeah, I know you have plenty of thoughts of it, so let's hear what you thought about it.
Well, Riley, I mean, Storm Reed's interpretation of Riley, I think is spot on. The actors they hire for the show, they do a phenomenal job. And I think they add value as well to the characters already. And that's an awesome thing. I think that's magic right there. So I love seeing Riley here. And then we see Ellie in a different light. And I think it's really interesting to see her just having fun. You know, it's all about the mission, and now we just get to see her before everything, before she figures out that she is immune. And the whole way how they reimagined the Left Behind DLC, it fit television, I think, really well without leaving certain key moments. And I know a lot of people are struggling sometimes with the show, especially if you're a Last of Us fan, because, you know, they cut out a lot, but I think it suits it for TV, right? I think they get the point across, and I love that we get to see like stores like Subway, Victoria's Secret. I think that little sequence was funny. The arcade thing was very fleshed out, and even a carousel. Well, it was just beautiful moments all around.
You know, I think this episode hit because I think coming right after the pandemic, you know, when we were all kind of like homestuck for a while, and we kind of forgot, you know, what malls and like shopping places were like for a while. And yeah, this definitely, if you're like a 90s kid, this will definitely be like a nostalgia tour for you, because we see like arcades, we see like carousels. I don't even know if malls have carousels anymore, not that I've seen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great little, you know, personal story, and it feels like this kind of coming of age film in this whole kind of a post-apocalyptic series. And yeah, when we first see Ellie's story, you know, she was in Fedra for a while, and she was kind of like in this military training school. And at first she was throwing hands with that one girl. I was like, damn, she gave that girl like 15 stitches. Like, damn. So she can hold her own, and that kind of adds more to Ellie's character in the present right now, because we see that she was independent from the start. But now it's just like, you know, the stakes are bigger. And I did like kind of like the parallels in the beginning of the episode, because we see that one officer, Captain Kwong, who's kind of like looking out for her, and he gives her like a choice. And at the end of the episode, we see that Riley also gives her a choice too. So it's like a weird parallel, right? So it's like Ellie has to make a lot of choices in this episode.
Remember those words that you just said, because that is super important. Of The Last of Us, Joel makes a choice, everybody makes a choice. That is super important. Everything builds on each other. Yeah, and it's cause and effect too. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just, it wasn't even like a whole thing where like, you know, because Riley had joined the Fireflies, and, you know, Ellie's still part of Fedra, so it was kind of like that weird like clash of ideologies, but they didn't make it like so political. It was kind of like, you know, when your friend like has like different points of view, and you kind of like are like us with the Vespers. But you can still be great friends at the end of the day, and that's like, I think that's another thing this show touches on, is like we can have different opinions, but at the end of the day, we're still human, right?
Yeah.
We still have to survive together. And they have like this cool little trip, right? And Riley shows Ellie the 4 wonders of the mall, And yeah, what did you think of that whole, kind of journey that they had together?
Well, I think really that, again, that was led by Riley, and I think that was a lot of pressure. And so I think the script writing was phenomenal here, because Left Behind was just filled with gameplay sequences, and there was a lot of optional conversations to be had, as the rest of The Last of Us as well. But I think those optional conversations really flesh out the characters, and some of those are, people are missing that, right? They just go straight for the story. So I'm glad they kind of added a lot of dialogue, and I think it was really fun, and it felt very natural. It almost felt like sometimes they were improvising, and I love that. And again, they're young, and the mindset that they have to have, I think they have to grow up fast, in this world. And I think this was the time where they could just breathe and adore each other. And of course, it's kind of like a love story. Like you said, it's coming of age. And I think that they didn't rush it much. I think they just let it play out. It was beautifully paced, to be honest with you. I had my worries because I knew that they were going to cover American Dreams, which was the comic prequel. And then they were going to cover Left Behind. And Left Behind had interjections of Ellie trying to help Joel. One thing I want to add too is that the way how they handled the flashback and cutting to, Joel says leave, it was perfect because Ellie lost somebody, right? So she doesn't want to lose another person that she cares about. Exactly. So then she's like, what, I'm going to go back for my father figure. And then they held hands. Like it was as if he acknowledges that we're really close now at the end. I thought it was beautifully done. It's like how they set up things, man. Goodness gracious. Really great stuff.
Yeah, the way they cut the, the scenes together, I think was really nice. Like you said, like kind of like that scene where, she has to, help another friend out, right? And it was bittersweet because it was kind of like, their last day together. And, I've had moments in my life where like, I've only had like one day to hang out with my friend or whatever. So I understand what it's like. So, but it was cool. They got to go to an arcade, they got to go on a carousel. And then I think the soundtrack for this episode was amazing too. They played that one song by The Cure on the carousel. So I thought it was great. And even like when they were dancing in the Halloween story, it was so playful and so childlike. It really makes you forget that they're actually like in an apocalypse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but unfortunately, they're, as Neil Druckmann phrased it, they have to have the bad moments with the good moments, right? So we see there was an infected living in that mall, and it kind of attacks them both while they weren't expecting it, and they both end up being bit. And then, as I said before, like Riley proposes to Ellie that they have like a choice; they have two options, right? But yeah, really bittersweet episode. But man, it was a tearjerker, as you say. I loved it though. Honestly, I loved it.
I loved it too. I think there was a little bit of sort of like this Romeo and Juliet notion, it seemed. And they offered that with the episode 3 of The Last of Us as well. So they're ride or die. And it sucked too because Ellie said, okay, don't go. And Riley was like, okay, I won't go, right? And so now they're just going to go out together and lose their minds, right? And I think it was just beautiful how they set that up. And I think it probably was very taxing for these two actors to go through the takes and cry constantly and get in their emotions, right? But that's what The Last of Us is about. And I'm glad we also get to see more of an angry side in Ellie. Because again, Ellie has a lot of commonality with Joel. So I wish we did see Marlene or one of the Fireflies coming to rescue them. Because we didn't get that in the DLC. But, you could kind of guess what happens after that. But yeah, perfect. Again, it's very different from Left Behind. Left Behind had a swarm of zombies. It was frightening. But here it was more smaller scale. So that's why I think the show feels very intimate. It's just because of those smaller scale moments. Yeah.
Yeah, and just, Storm and Bella's chemistry on screen was really nice. This is probably like a fun episode for them to shoot because they just get to like hang out in a mall, right? And
yeah,
do, like kids stuff. So you could see that on screen how joyful they were. Even like Bella just like freaking out over an escalator. I thought that was so cute. And it really like adds to that notion that what life is like for kids in this world, as I've touched on before in previous episodes. It's like Ellie's kind of, and it's funny because it's like she's such a nerd, but like these things are like so before her time, but she's so into them, and I think that's really cool, and it just adds to the like childlike wonder,
Yeah, and it also adds this kind of like an escape for her. She loves to collect relics of the past, and she has all the stuff from the past, and maybe that's her way to cope. And it gives her personality, right? She's a nerd, and I'm glad that they went out, full blast with that. But yeah, anyway, so what would you rate this episode?
This episode actually gets a high score for me. I think it's 10 out of 10. I think it, like a lot of these episodes, have really good personal relationship stories, and this one, even though it's set in this kind of post-apocalyptic event, it didn't feel like that at all for me. I mean, towards the end maybe, but it felt like I said, like a coming of age story, like a romance novel or something. It's really intricate, like how they handle that in such a dark, depressing setting. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for me. How would you rate it?
10 out of 10, as always. I love this show so much. Perfect adaptation, I feel, and adds something too. But yeah, everybody, that is our review for episode 7 of The Last of Us, now again streaming on HBO Max. If you made it to the end of this video, please remember to like and share with your friends. It'll greatly help us out. Please do that. And check out our other playlists as well. If you're new to the channel, again, week by week, we review The Last of Us, and we're reviewing Hello Tomorrow as well. And we have a pretty fun Let's Talk About coming soon. But Dylan, as always, please take us away.
Yeah, check out all our playlists already, and you can check us out on Instagram as well. Check out our other channels as well, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and until then, thanks for having lunch with us.
See you guys. Endure and survive.
Endure and survive.